Good morning, everybody. And once again, thank you again for attending the Greater Lowell Veteran Council's annual Veterans Day breakfast. At first, if you could all stand for a moment of silence. This is in memory of all of our POW, MIA, our fallen from all wars. And I'd like to make a special note that Mr. Clarence Campbell, he was from Dracut. He was a World War II veteran. He served on the Missouri, and he was present for the Japanese surrender. And he passed away last year, December 22nd. So if we can all have a moment of silence, please. Sergeant at Arms, please present the colors.
Present Hans. Two.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Once again, I'd like to thank everyone for attending today. Now begins our speaking program. I'd like to introduce the Greater Lowell Veterans Council officers and appointees. Myself, Matt Elkins, Commander, Dick Duchamp, Quartermaster, William Zune, Chaplain, Joe Zangri, Judge Advocate, Richard Howe, Historian, Peter Manning, Trustee, Jerry Dunn, Trustee.
Yeah.
Hoorah! At least someone knows their name here. Joe Manonta, Trustee, and our Sergeant at Arms, Ron Roy.
Yeah.
Finally, a Marine that actually knows their name and can probably spell it. Thanks, Sarge. All right, our member organizations, we've actually increased our membership this year by 3 new members. We have American Legion 87 from Lowell, which is one of our new members. We have American Legion Posts 212, Post 247, Post 313, and Post 315. We have the Armenian American Veterans, Disabled American Veterans, Post 25 and Post 47. Franco-American War veterans, Greek-American War veterans, Heart of the Traveling Soldier, which is one of our new organizations, the Jewish War veterans, Korean War veterans, Polish-American veterans, the Marine Corps League, Merrimack Valley Vietnam veterans, the Nam Knights of Merrimack Valley, again one of our new organizations within the council, Portuguese American veterans, and VFW posts 662 and 9307. We have with us today Congresswoman Nikki Tsongas. There you are. Sorry. Senator Donahue. Former Senator Pangiatakis. Representative Tommy Golden.
Did you look at my cheat sheet to see where you were listed?
Representative Ratty Mum. Representative Nagel. I don't know where. Oh, he's back there. Okay. We also have with us some people running for Congress. Daniel Coe. Steve Carrigan, back there, and Lori Trahan, back there. Yeah, I got him.
Okay, sorry.
It's okay, thanks. From the City Council, we have Councilor Jim Milanazzo, Corey Belanja, Rodney Elliott, John Leahy, Rita Mercier, William Samaras. We also have Councilor-elect Vesna Noon and Councilor-elect Karen Cirillo. And I was just informed that Councilor-elect Dave Conway is here. Thank you. Attending organizations, we have representatives from the Crescent House, the City of Lowell Veterans Commission, a recruiter from the U.S. Army, Patton Memorial Society, the Don Polsky Club. I'm sorry, Dick, didn't have you listed here. It's Register of Deeds and also our historian for the council, Dick Howe. We have veteran service agents, Lynette Grabella from Dracut, and Eric Lamache from Lowell. Our color guard today was Lowell High School Air Force Junior ROTC, commanded by Lieutenant Colonel Ironfield. Bugler for today will be Dick Dusham. Firing team will be the Marine Corps League. Frank. Okay, yeah, we have a firing team. You know. Franco-American veterans, the Nam Knights, and the Merrimack Valley Vietnam veterans. Slight change of the program, we're only going to have one singer today performing both songs, and that will be Michael Lally, which is the office manager of the Lowell Cemetery. I would also like to recognize Frederick Waller. He's a World War II veteran. He always likes to attend as many of our events as possible. European Theater, he's right over there.
Henry.
And I've just been told that Henry, what's your last name? Narasevitz, World War II veteran as well.
God bless.
We also have members of the Greater Lowell Veterans Volunteer Corps here helping out. I'd also like to thank Spectrum Management staff for this room and everything they've done to set up for us. Catering was provided by UMass Lowell. We have Lowell Telecommunications and the Lowell Sun here. And I guess today's council photographer is Bob Indy Mitchell of the Nam Knights. Please note applause for the next two organizations. We have the POW MIA National League of Families, and we have the Gold Star families with us today. If I've missed anyone, please let me know. Someone that's been doing the running around for me.
Commander, I'd like to
Yes.
say one thing, the World War II veterans, and the one over there, I just want to say one thing, if it wasn't for guys like that, we probably wouldn't be here. That's why I like World War II.
Outstanding. But if I've missed anybody, please let me know. You have people running around, and just give the information to them, and I'll be happy to recognize you. Before we start our speaking program, a gentleman came up to me in the lobby and asked if he could do a special presentation. At this time, Sergeant Arms. Please escort to the podium Retire Major Gregorian. Thank you.
Good morning, veterans.
Morning.
From World War II to today. I wasn't prepared for this, but I learned that Congresswoman Tsongas would be here. And with honor and privilege for all of us, from here, from our neighborhood to hers, where she serves our congressional 3rd District in Massachusetts, I would like to present from all of us this flag that's flown on B-1 bomber on my 5th deployment to Middle East to our honorary Congresswoman. Thank you, and happy Veterans Day to all of you. Thank you for your service. Thank you.
This time, could Congresswoman Nikki Tsongas come to the podium, please?
Thank you so much for that great honor. I will treasure that flag forever. It's been my good fortune as a member of the House Armed Services Committee to make 6 trips to Afghanistan, where I've seen the extraordinary commitment that our young men and women are making to best defend this country. And so to have been to that country, to have seen the extraordinary service, and to now receive this flag means a lot to me. So thank you very much. And good morning, and thank you to all of you. It's always a pleasure to be here. I can't do it every year. This is a big district, and we have veterans throughout who have served this country admirably, and so I have to spread it out. But wanted to be here this year because I'm not so sure that next year, as we move into a re-election round, you'll have a newly elected member of Congress at that point. So since this may well be my last time as your member of Congress, I really wanted to be here. And I also thank you to the Greater Lowell Veterans Council for your ongoing efforts in support of our region service members, and for putting together today's ceremony, and also for the work you've done to reach out and bring other veterans organizations into this umbrella. And thank you, of course, to all our veterans for your service and your sacrifice, and for continuing to play a key role here at home. You have brought your skills and military experience back home, historically over many years, and most recently for our newer veterans, to fuel the workforce and the innovation that is a hallmark of our regions. And in so many ways, you have shaped the character of our communities. So I thank you for that. I also want to take a moment to recognize our Gold Star families in attendance with us today. Your family has made the most selfless sacrifice on behalf of our fellow Americans. And while we can never heal your pain, we can certainly share in your pride and pledge to do all we can to honor your loved ones. So I thank you for that. Veterans Day is just one way to show that support. It's an opportunity to honor all Americans who wear and who've worn the uniform of the United States of America. I was so proud that my father was one of them. As many of you know, he was a survivor of the bombing of Pearl Harbor, went on to serve throughout World War II, and then committed to serving in the Air Force as it became its own separate branch. And so as a result, I had the great good fortune to grow up on military bases across this country and across the world. And in fact, learned to read in Tokyo, Japan, in Ramstein, Germany, and went to high school in Tokyo, Japan. So kind of been there in a different way. And it was remarkable, actually, as a comment, just to see the way in which we were able to heal our relations with countries that had been our enemy. It took the outreach, I think, of our service members and the willingness to put aside great wounds, but nevertheless today we bear the fruits of that, as Germany and Japan are now some of our strongest allies. But here back in this district, we have such a proud tradition of military service, not only here in Lowell, but throughout the region. It's a tradition that I have come to appreciate, stretches across generations. Wherever I go, I meet people who have family members serving either today or have served over the many conflicts that we have been a part of. Earlier this fall, I was honored to join Mr. Avak Avakian of Concord, Massachusetts, as he was inducted into the French Legion of Honor, the highest decoration bestowed by the country of France. This honor is bestowed upon those who have served France, defending liberty, and American veterans who risked their lives during World War II and who fought on French territory qualify to be decorated as Knights of the Legion of Honor. That day, I was reminded yet again of the undying commitment to honor, duty, and freedom exhibited by so many of our young citizens like Mr. Avakian, who today I think is in his 80s, but the time that he served was just 18 or 19 years old. How fortunate we were to have such brave young men and women serve in our behalf. And today, as we honor our veterans, we must pay special homage to the service members who remain in harm's way, serving at home and abroad, places across the globe, but like Iraq, Afghanistan, Iraq, and elsewhere. They carry with distinction the mantle of a new generation of service. But as we keep our current service members in our thoughts and prayers, we must always remember that many, like veterans of past conflicts, will return forever changed from their experience of war. And as such, I think we have an abiding responsibility to provide the resources and support that they need and deserve. We have done much work in Congress, as well as here in Massachusetts, to support our service members. And this is particularly true as we better understand the long-term wounds of war. But there is so much more that needs to be done. We must prioritize protecting the well-being of our veterans by continuing to pursue initiatives that benefit service members as we all transition to civilian life. We have to clear avenues to employment. People come back with great skill sets, but we have to better connect those skill sets with work in the private sector. We have to work to eliminate homelessness among the veteran population, and I think much great work has been done here in Massachusetts. We have to aggressively ensure access to quality health care, and we have to work to better understand the staggeringly high number of veteran suicides and take effective steps to provide effective mental health services. This has been really tough. It's hard to really wrap our hands around, but also especially tough to find mental health providers that have also served in the military, so that those who are really wrestling with mental illness feel that sort of innate connection with the mental health provider that's trying to help them. This has really been a tough thing to overcome. We also have to work to improve and modernize the VA, especially here in Massachusetts, where there have been a number of alarming concerns raised recently about the quality of health care being provided in our own district or nearby at the Bedford VA. As you know, there have been major questions surrounding the death of a veteran in their care. And I believe it is appropriate for the VA's Inspector General, along with the U.S. Attorney General's Office and the FBI, to conduct investigations, and these are ongoing. A primary concern of mine has been that the Bedford VA has been without a permanent director for too long. And I have requested that VA and administration officials keep me updated with regard to the actions they're taking to address complaints raised by the media and by veterans who come to our office. So along with other members of the congressional delegation, we requested that the VA Secretary David Shulkin address our concerns, and last weekend he visited with us at the Bedford VA, and so he could update us on the actions that the VA is currently taking. I certainly appreciate the time he took to be with us. It's clear that the VA is engaged in investigating the troubling allegations, and also that they've begun the process of finding new leadership. A qualified, stable leadership team is necessary for the Bedford VA to provide our veterans with the quality care they deserve. So even as we're having these troubles at the Bedford VA, I also do hear over and over again how satisfied many veterans are with the care that they receive there. So we need stable leadership, and we have to take seriously the charges that do come down. We also want to be mindful of the good care that so many have received. So as I serve in the next 14 months, both in my work on the House Armed Services Committee and whatever I can do for our veterans, I'm committed to continuing to work on behalf of all of you. My office is always available to assist with any veteran-related questions, either to hear about issues that you're troubled by, but also if you have a particular issue, a personal issue that we can be helpful with. Ken Christopher, who's in the back of the red room, is our liaison. He's a veteran himself. He's done a great job providing unparalleled assistance to the veterans of the 3rd District on a daily basis. So if any of you have an issue or a concern, please don't hesitate to call our office. That is what we are there for. So I've been greatly valued my time as your member of Congress. I have great honor for all of you who have served in our behalf. I always said as I was seeking this office that my father's service to our country and my mother's with him, because it is a family effort, was my inspiration. And they've been with me throughout. And thank you again for the honor you've bestowed upon me. And I look forward to working with you over the next 14 months.
Senator Eileen Donahue.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I'm honored to be here today with all of you on this very special occasion in honor of all veterans. Obviously, we're here today to commemorate and to celebrate veterans. But before I make my remarks, I want to take a moment to say a special few words about our good friend, Nikki Tsongas. Llewellyans and veterans have had no better friend than Nikki Tsongas in the Capitol representing us. The Tsongas imprint in this city reverberates outward from this particular room and arena that we're in, and ranging on all issues, from economic development to education to the environment. But truly, as a senior member of the House Armed Services Committee, she has brought national attention to the devastating impacts of military sexual trauma and women in the military. She's done her work in Congress in a bipartisan fashion, which is all too rare today, as we have seen in this current climate. And too often, the focus is on politics at the expense of good policy and taking care of people in this country. Her work in the district complements her efforts in the Capitol. As she mentioned, Ken Christopher here, I cannot say enough about him as the veteran himself. He is a one-stop hub for those who need help navigating the labyrinth of federal benefits. And I think many of you in the room know how complicated it can be. But Ken is there to help walk you through this. I want to thank both Nikki Tsongas and Ken Christopher for always being there and working so well with my office. When we've had a veteran who needs help, they have been there to work with us hand in hand. And I want to thank them both for their past service, present, and future to not just this city, but to our nation. In his second inaugural address, President Lincoln concluded with the following words: "With malice toward none, with charity for all, with firmness in the right as God gives us to see the right, let us strive on to finish the work we are in, to bind up the nation's wounds, to care for him who shall have borne the battle, and for his widow and his orphan, to do all that which may achieve and cherish a just and lasting peace among ourselves and with all nations." This charge was made more than 150 years ago, but it rings true today, as it did at the end of the Civil War. But the tradition of celebrating veterans on November 11th did not begin until after the devastation of World War I. Nearly 5 million Americans participated in that conflict, the world's first encounter with mechanized warfare, and more than 116,000 paid the ultimate price by giving of their lives. World War II and Korean War conflicts that followed, more than 20 million Americans served, and more than 450,000 died. The name of the tradition changed from Armistice Day to Veterans Day. So by the second half of the 20th century, nearly everyone knew someone who had served overseas. The intimate understanding of the sacrifices of military members and their families led both to remembrances like today, on Veterans Day, and provided very important benefits like the GI Bill that actually came from a representative of Congress who hailed from the city of Lowell, Edith Norris Rogers. The Vietnam War took place at a time of great division in our nation, and those who selflessly served failed to get the appreciation and the recognition they deserved. Thank you for your service. Today, sometimes the military service seems remote to Americans. While fewer people have sacrificed in terms of giving of themselves and their families, going to war, we know they have been in Afghanistan, in Iraq, and the legions who have served are addressing the needs of this country. But as Congresswoman Tsongas mentioned, the needs and the benefits of the veterans and their families should remain imperative for all levels of government and society. So even though the percentage of Americans who served in conflict has declined, we have become lax. We have too often, for too long, taken for granted the service of those who give of their time and their lives for our country. The inadequate staffing at the Veterans Health Administration facilities in Massachusetts and throughout New England and the country is evidence. The negligence makes days like this so important. A day to remember and honor veterans reminds us in a concrete way of the enormous debt that we owe to our veterans. I'm reminded, as Congresswoman Tsongas mentioned, of my father's service today. He served, and I've mentioned this before, in World War II. He was in the Marines. He enlisted as a young man. I came across photos just a couple of weeks ago, and I looked at how young he and the other Marines in the pictures were, taken on Guam. They were taken at a time before they knew what they were headed into. He fought on Iwo Jima, Okinawa, and in very, very terrible battles. And the young and the innocent faces who went to war, who gave of, many of them never came back, and gave us the freedom we have today. That's been mentioned for our World War II veterans and all of you here. I cannot thank you enough, because returning from World War II, my father embedded in all 8 of his children the love of country, the love of family, and making sure we fight for the American dream for everyone. And you have made that possible. I just want to mention a couple of things that we have done on Beacon Hill in order to try and help our veterans. I, together with my colleagues here, certainly Representative Golden, Representative Mom, Representative Nangle, have fought for things like the Valor Act in 2014, which provided several important educational, fiscal, legal, and other protections and benefits for veterans and their families. Last year, we passed the HOME Act, which prevents discrimination against veterans in employment. It expands a scholarship program to include the children of POWs, and it introduces tax benefits for veterans and their families. From the fiscal year 2012 through 2017, Massachusetts has put millions of dollars toward benefits for our veterans and for their families. One of my good colleagues in the state Senate, Senator Michael Rush, who himself is a member of the military, conducted a study that indicated that Massachusetts leads the nation in providing veteran and military benefit programs and services. And though we lead the nation, we need to do more. We know that, and we are continuing to strive to provide for what our veterans and their families truly deserve. And lastly, I want to recognize the Gold Star families, some who are here today. And they have honored us with their presence today. In Massachusetts, we did expand the eligibility for the Massachusetts Military Family Relief Fund to ease the cost of housing, utilities, medical services, and food for Gold Star families in need. We eliminated the $2,500 property tax exemption cap for Gold Star spouses. We extended the assistance from the Military Relief Fund to service members whose death was related to their military service. We expanded the eligibility for Gold Star family license plates. And finally, we established a bicentennial park in Fall River as the Gold Star Family's Memorial Monument. While these steps are significant, they can never come close to repaying the enormous debt of gratitude that we owe all Gold Star families. Please know that while we can never repay you, we will never forget you. In his last Thanksgiving Day proclamation delivered 54 years ago today, in 1963, President John F. Kennedy, who himself was a veteran, wrote, "Today we give our thanks, most of all for the ideals of honor and faith we inherited from our forefathers, for the decency of purpose, steadfastness of resolve, and strength of will, for the courage, for the humility which they possessed, and which we must seek every day to emulate. As we express our gratitude, we must never forget that the highest appreciation is not to utter words, but to live by them." Thank you to all the veterans here today. and to your families who have sacrificed so much. You have acted for the highest ideals with the ultimate resolve. By our words and our deeds, we will seek to honor your service and your sacrifice today and always. May God bless each and every one of you. Thank you very much.
First, let me just say that during World War II and thereafter, the American military personnel and our veterans never had a better friend or supporter than Edith North Rogers, Congresswoman from Lowell. And over the last 10 years, the American men and women in uniform and our veterans have not had a better friend or supporter in Congress than Nikki Tsongas. And for those candidates that are out there, they're running for Congress, and we have some great ones, their example is something that you really need to strive to emulate, because it's an important piece of America, an important piece of our district. On Veterans Day, we remember the service of all who defended our freedom as members of the American military. It's good for us, especially we who never had to serve and sacrifice, to remember, but it's better for us not just to remember, but to appreciate, because appreciation puts value in the remembrance. And all of you, our veterans, have earned it and deserve it. General Norman Schwarzkopf was known to say, "It doesn't take a hero to send men into battle. It takes a hero to be one of those men who goes into battle." You have been heroes. Over the last 100 years, American troops have fought for freedom all over this world, land, air, and sea, and have endured every type of warfare, deprivation, hardship, disease, and condition. You stood where no one else would stand. You stood when no one else would stand. And you stood for what no one else would stand for: our freedom and the freedom of the world. You, the American veteran, and our active service members stand out as the greatest freedom fighters in the history of the world. To many, the American military has been and is their only hope for freedom. Let me share a story told by General Karl Vono, which to me epitomizes the thoughts of millions throughout this world who live in subjugation. When the Berlin Wall fell, the first train of East Germans were boarded and headed to be reunited with their families in West Germany. As the train rambled through the wilderness in the darkness of the night, those on board would press their faces up against the windows at the flickering of any light to see where they were. But disappointment after disappointment sent them back to their seats. Then, as they approached the checkpoint in the town of Hof, a place where Dick Howe patrolled in uniform for us during this time, in the lights of the depot, they could see two soldiers. And from the front of the train to the back of the train came the cry, "There are the Americans! We are free! There are the Americans! You!" And because of that, millions have been freed. Freedom for us and freedom for the world. Let me share with you the story and sentiments of Martin Greenfield, a concentration camp survivor whose mother, father, sister, 5-year-old brother, and grandparents were all exterminated in the ovens of those concentration camps. He wrote, "Everything I am or will be, I owe to God and the soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines of the U.S. Armed Forces who fought and died to liberate me. The problems our nation now faces feel enormous and daunting. They are, but no more so than those we have confronted and conquered in the past. I still remember as a boy looking up at a brick chimney at Auschwitz as smoke belched the vaporous remnants of corpses into the air. I remember frantically scanning the angular piles of bones wrapped in leathery skin that cropped up around Buchenwald concentration camp in search of my father. And yet, the men and women of the U.S. military liberated the concentration camps and raised the crematoria. They rescued me and America welcomed me here and eventually claimed me as one of their own. I am overwhelmed with gratitude for those brave enough to serve and for the loving spouses and children who support them. Throughout the year, but especially on Veterans Day, all who lost their freedom and had it won back, like Martin Greenfield and those people in that first train out of East Germany, and all who have never had to suffer or sacrifice because of the loss of freedom and never had to fight to win it back or preserve it, like most of us today in America. All of us should stand overwhelmed with gratitude. We stand free because you, our veterans, stood tall. Happy Veterans Day, and we remember you with appreciation. Thank you.
Tommy Golden, come on, please.
Thank you all very much. First and foremost, I want to say thank you to State Representative David Nangle and State Representative Roddy Mom for allowing me to speak on their behalf. If anyone had the opportunity next year, I have to tell you something. I attended an event at Lowell High School, and Lieutenant Colonel Ironstone, I know they're running to other events today, they did a fabulous job in honoring our veterans. The pride that was in that room from those young, and I'll say young boys and girls of 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 years old, when they stood at attention and they stepped out to salute each veteran that was there that day was tremendously overwhelming. So when you do see Lieutenant Colonel Ironstone, please tell her that you want to be invited next year. What they did that day was spectacular, absolutely spectacular. Getting on to the next piece, I have to say thank you very much to my Congresswoman, our Congresswoman. Whether it was sitting down for lunch or having a discussion on the phone, you know, you always know a true leader, somebody who always takes that time and that opportunity to talk about issues, veteran issues, every issue. She was one of the leaders a number of years ago when we started to talk about mental health problems, about the substance abuse issues. And I have to say, we are losing a true leader in this area. And I just want to say thank you very, very much, Congresswoman, for all that you've done for our home. All day long, each and every one of us meets our friends, talks to people, and say things, hey, how's your family? How's work? How's the weather? But today, I want to concentrate on just simply two words that we all hear often, every single day. And it's thank you. These two words are what we should be thinking of every single day when we see a veteran. You know, many of my family members, many of my dear friends have served in the armed services. And some of the funny things they'll talk about when they get together is, you were a desk jockey, you were in the rear with the gear. It's stuff that I laugh about because they laugh and joke with each other. Do you know, but if you were in the rear with the gear or sitting at a desk or on that radio, picking up coordinates, taking coordinates, giving coordinates, or if you were on the front lines, each and every American here today, every breath, they should be thinking, thank you. As was stated earlier, without our World War II veterans, we may not be here right now. And for all the veterans after and before that, but especially for our World War II veterans, I want to say thank you. You know, thank you for putting on the uniform making sure it was always impeccable, the shoes were shined, walking tall. Thank you for answering the call when no one else would. Thank you for being cold. Thank you for being wet. And thank you for being hot. Thank you for being away from home, from the people that loved you. Thank you for my freedoms of speech, my personal freedom to decide what I will follow in a religion or not in a religion. My personal opportunity to serve each and every one of you, as my colleagues would say, on Beacon Hill, to vote the way I think you want me to vote. I say to my veterans, thank you. Thank you very much for protecting my family. Thank you very much for all of your sacrifices and that of your families. Ladies and gentlemen, every single day should be Veterans Day. Every single day in my world is Veterans Day. May God bless each and every veteran here today. May God bless the families of the veterans, the Gold Star families, and may God bless the greatest nation that this world has ever seen, the United States of America. Thank you all very much for being here tonight.
This morning, Representative Radimum asked if you could say a few words. Radimum.
Good morning. I have to say that I'm truly honored to be here. Congresswoman, there is no doubt in my mind that all of us so sincerely thank you for all the work that you've done to represent us in Congress. And of course, you will still be with all of us, continue on forward. But I do want to take this time to share with you a little bit how I feel what democracy really means. You see, this young boy came to a country as an immigrant. And if you can imagine that you're living with no freedom, and when you landed, when you touch the ground of freedom, imagine taking all that pain and suffering away from you. That's what all of our veterans did. That's why freedom to me sings inside my heart. And to make a clearer point of what melody meant, when we hear the melody of Michael Allen sang a couple of minutes ago, the reason why it would sound so clear and beautiful, that's why we hear every note, was because of the freedom that all of you, the men and women who serve to fight for that, that's why the melody sounds so clear and crisp. That is freedom. You know, my younger brother-in-law, now mind you, we just survived the Cambodia genocide and we landed in America. And here he is, graduating from high school, Lowell High School. And he tell my mother and father-in-law, who live with me, and Susie, that he want to sign up for the Marine. Needless to say, that my late mother and father-in-law had totally did not want any part of that. And you can imagine why. They have lost their whole family. Why should my son go to defend America? In which way? Because they only realized that it was only the pain and suffering that they've seen. And that we're here living in the freedom already. But of course he went against that. He is now serving in the LPD and doing a great job at that. I'm so proud of him because he knows that freedom deserves what freedom is, and that is to fight and believing in what freedom is. And I can assure you, my friend, that democracy is free and America is still the beacon of hope no matter where we are in the world, especially from where I came from to now. I am honored to live in this great country and to serve all of you on behalf of all of my colleagues. Thank you.
God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans, white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home.
My kids have a little stage fright, but they wanted to say thank you to all the veterans for serving. Veterans Day was originally known as Armistice Day. This was to commemorate the armistice of World War I, also known as the Great War and the War to End All Wars. It is observed on November 11th, and usually Veterans Day events begin or end at 11 a.m. This is because the fighting on the Western Front ended on 11/11/11. That is the 11th day of the 11th month and the 11th hour. When service members return home, they often encounter many hardships, especially if they had been deployed overseas, and even more so if they have seen combat. Some find it hard to re-socialize into civilian life, and they live in silence with the memories of their service. They face social stigma, difficult in finding help, and those who will understand, and many more issues. Some have mental illness, emotional issues, and addiction. It is deplorable that so often the title of veteran carries a negative social stigma in this country, and that veterans are invisible, cast off, shunned, and largely ignored part of society, where adequate funds are available or unavailable to house, feed, and assist those who served our country and sacrificed for your freedom. Whereas in many third world countries, which I've seen myself, and in developing nations, veterans are provided with property, homes, personal and family financial assistance and benefits, and much more without the bureaucracy, the red tape, or other difficulties our veterans here face. Veterans in these countries receive these benefits regardless of time in their service as thanks and to honor the service to their country by struggling, impoverished governments where some are controlled by dictators and ruled by communism. In contrast, here in America, funds are readily available and abundant to provide fully, such as housing, food, services, and so on, for those who manipulate and survive off of the system, those who enter secretly and fraudulently to live in this country illegally, receiving sanctuary, and are protected from consequences for violating our laws, harming our families, when our veterans are left ignored and suffering. According to Human Services in Contemporary America by William R. Berger, I quote, Department of Veteran Affairs has stated that more than 177,000 Iraqi and Afghanistan veterans have received a provisional diagnosis of PTSD, end quote. PTSD cases are reported as high as 52% in veterans who sought treatment. Of those serving in active duty, 26% of female and 10% of male have reported symptoms of mental health issues actively seeking treatment. Those statistics only show the cases, or reported cases, and do not include those who suffer in silence. If PTSD symptoms are not identified and treated early enough, it can have long-term effects. Some areas PTSD commonly impact are relationships and employment. Far too often, it can lead to drug and alcohol abuse. Officially, today is Veterans Day. You can find it marked on every calendar. Communities and schools hold events and honor veterans like this event here today. Restaurants give discounts for free meals to veterans. But for myself and my fellow veterans in this room and elsewhere, today is not Veterans Day. Every day we wake is Veterans Day. Freedom, ladies and gentlemen, is not free. Fallen soldiers, POW, MIA, veterans paid for it, and active military continue to pay for it. Thank you.
Glory be to you, our Lord and our God, as we behold the blessings you have given us as citizens of the United States of America. We thank you, Lord, for this blessed and bountiful land. Help us to renew our loyalty to this great country, and most of all, enable us to rededicate ourselves in faith to thy service. Lord, hold our troops in your loving hands. Protect them as they protect us. Bless their families for the selfless acts they perform in our time of need. I ask this in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior. Amen. Amen. Amen.
Okay, guys, get ready. Forward, arms. Left, right, feet. Ready, aim, fire. Ready, fire. Ready, fire. Half, left. Breathe in, arm. Parade rest. Fine detail, tan hut, dismissed.